This poll didn't just shift numbers. It sent a shock through Canberra, a government under pressure, a budget under fire, and a surge no one saw coming until it hit. One Nation jumps to 32% in a bombshell Roy Morgan poll, overtaking Labour at 28.5% right after a brutal budget backlash over taxes, housing, and cost of living. And then Pauline Hanson steps in, calling it proof that Australians are sending a clear message. Change is already happening. But what starts as a poll story quickly turns into something bigger. Because this isn't just numbers anymore, it's momentum, anger, and a political system starting to feel the ground shift beneath it.
This poll also comes after One Nation secured its second seat in the lower house at last weekend's Farrer by-election, which had the ABC in meltdown.
A big and dangerous mistake to legitimise One Nation and to embolden One Nation. I used the term earlier on in the broadcast, the permission structure. If they are able to win their first lower house seat, that begins the process of legitimising them. And in other electorates where they may run, voters thinking, well, it's happened before, it's normal now. You start normalising something.
Well, you can imagine their shock today after this poll has been released. I caught up with One Nation leader Pauline Hanson yesterday, who says this is just the beginning. Joining us now is One Nation leader Pauline Hanson. Pauline Hanson, thank you so much for your time. We'll get to the budget in just a moment, but first of all, congratulations on your party's win in Farrer. What does this mean for One Nation going forward?
It means so much. And I think to a lot of Australians out there who are looking for hope and change, it says to them, well, a vote for One Nation is not a wasted vote, but that we can actually get people elected to Parliament. I think a lot of people would shocked by the 40% vote that we got in that electorate, considering it was held by the coalition for 77 years. So it's a good indication. I'm buoyed by it. I think it's wonderful. And I just want to say to people, you know, this is the start. We are going to call the government and future governments, whether it's the Labor or the coalition government, or ourselves for that matter, but there has to be accountability for the people, and that's all they've been crying out for. Don't forget about us. You know, you work for us.
Let's talk about the budget. Labor, of course, broke its election tax promises, confirming changes to negative gearing, capital gains and family trusts, pretending that this will help young people. I've heard you speak about this, calling Labor's budget communism. We are standing by to get your own budget reply later tonight. What can we expect?
What do you think about this debate? Drop your opinion in the comments below and let your voice be heard. Join the discussion, share your thoughts, and tell us where you stand on this issue.
Yeah. Look, I want to put across vision for Australia. Okay, I'm against what they've done because you're taking from those people that have worked extremely hard. You know, a lot of these people, like myself, a baby boomer, we went without. I actually had second-hand clothing, second-hand furniture. We didn't have the number of TVs and we didn't have a number. Well, there's no mobile phones. We didn't go to the restaurants. We had to save. What we saved, we put into investments. And those investments, you know, gave us the ability to provide for ourselves and later in life. And a lot of us now are helping our children because the cost of living is ridiculous. In our day, you could buy a house for 3 times your age. Now it's about 15 plus times, 16 plus times. So I get where the young ones are finding it very hard and struggling. The government's not helping them either with the 5% deposit because that's only putting them in more stress and more mortgage cost with the rising interest rates that is happening. So what we want to do is give the Australian people hope. You know, our tax is on income splitting. We're looking at pensioners being able to work unlimited hours. It doesn't affect their pension or their healthcare card. I want, you know, future building infrastructure projects that we need to introduce in Australia to give us the wealth that we need. There was nothing in the Labor's budget about that, nothing whatsoever. There's no vision for the future. And Labor, and I point this out to people, Labor were cunning in this budget to say we're going to give you a $250, tax relief. That's to every Australian. Doesn't matter whether you're a millionaire, a billionaire, or those people that are struggling. They did this last time. That equates to about $5 a week. So anyone who opposes that, that's not good fiscal management. That's a scam. Because when it comes to the next election, if anyone votes against it, they're going to use it in their ad campaigns to say, oh, you voted against a tax cut. Remember, people, you've already given this money to the government because they're making another $15 billion in personal tax and another $13 billion out of the superannuation. So this is the government that's done most tax grabs out of your pocket because they can't control their spending.
And this is where the entire political landscape starts shifting in real time. Because the latest Roy Morgan poll drops a result that nobody in Canberra can ignore. One Nation surges to 32% in primary support, while Labour falls behind at 28.5%. The Coalition sits at 16.5% and the Greens at 11.5%. On paper, it looks like just another poll. In reality, it signals something far more serious, a political shockwave after the budget backlash that is now hitting the government directly in the numbers. This is not a normal fluctuation. This is a party that was sitting at around 6% in the last election, suddenly overtaking the governing party in a national poll. And that alone is enough to change the tone of the entire debate. Because the timing makes it worse. Right after the budget. Right after the controversy over changes to negative gearing, capital gains tax, and accusations of broken election promises, the reaction is no longer just political noise inside Parliament. It has moved into public opinion, and the public response is loud. What makes this moment even more explosive is how quickly the narrative shifts. One Nation's rise is not being framed as gradual growth. It is being framed as disruption, a permission structure being created, a normalization effect that, according to critics, is now changing how voters think about the party. But at the same time, the numbers are undeniable. The support is real. The momentum is visible. And that is where the tension begins to build. Because Pauline Hanson is not reacting like someone surprised. She is reacting like someone confirming what she already believed was coming. The Farah by-election win, the 40% vote share in a seat held for decades, is presented as proof that this is not a temporary protest vote. It is a structural shift in voter behavior. And then the conversation moves into the budget itself. Negative gearing, capital gains tax, cost of living pressure, housing affordability, inflation. Every issue becomes part of a larger argument about whether the government has lost control of economic direction. Hanson frames it as broken promises and failed fiscal management, while also pointing to rising taxes, debt pressure, and household strain as evidence of deeper problems. From there, the debate escalates further. Migration becomes central. Housing stress becomes central. Electricity prices and business closures are brought into the argument. And suddenly, this is no longer just a policy disagreement. It becomes a full narrative about economic survival and national direction. Then the most politically sensitive shift happens. The discussion moves toward Angus Taylor and coalition policy responses, and Hanson immediately reframes it as alignment with One Nation positions. Migration caps,